The plaza in Westbridge was usually an exercise in gray. Gray concrete benches, gray cobblestones, gray office towers hemming it on every side. On winter mornings, commuters hurried across it without glancing up, heads bent against their screens or the North River wind. No one thought much about the single plane tree that stood in the square's center. It had been planted decades earlier as part of a beautification drive that ran out of money before flowering shrubs or a fountain could join it, and its bark was perpetually nicked by delivery bikes chaining themselves to its trunk. Pigeons nested in its branches. Children tipped the remnants of paper cups into its roots. Tourists rarely photographed it. In short, it was a fixture without affection, background noise in an already unremarkable civic space, and likely would have stayed that way had something not happened on the first mild morning of March. The change began subtly. Marta Dominguez, who wheeled her stainless steel coffee cart into the plaza 5 days a week, was the first to notice. As she coaxed the propane burner to life, she saw that the new buds unfurling at eye level were oddly translucent. They reminded her of cellophane candy wrappers, thin, glossy, catching the growing sunlight, but they were unmistakably living tissue, traced with fine green veins. She was leaning in to pinch one when the leaf flickered, as though lit from within, and a tiny, moving picture appeared across its surface. Marta saw herself, only a handful of minutes earlier, handing an extra donut to the yellow-vested crossing guard on Mason Street. The image was silent but crystal clear, perfectly framed inside the delicate oval of the leaf. Marta startled, dropping her tongs, and the image dissolved. She tried the next leaf. Another flicker, another scene. This time a young man she recognized from the bike courier service, sprinting through traffic to retrieve a stranger's dropped scarf. The leaf released the vision when a breeze passed, returning to its ordinary translucence. Marta whispered a hurried prayer, crossed herself, and ran to fetch the only other person in the plaza that early, Mr. Elias Warner, the retired high school civics teacher who walked laps around the square each dawn to keep his heart doctor appeased. Elias had taught Marta's eldest 2 children and still carried himself like a man expecting homework. He followed her to the tree, humiliation ready on his tongue in case she was playing a prank. But a single peek at the shifting leaf stilled him. He saw, much to his confusion, an angled shot of himself at the corner bodega yesterday, replacing a jar of pasta sauce an elderly shopper had knocked over. When the image cleared, he touched the branch with reverence usually reserved for church relics. Word travels fast in a city thirsty for wonder. By lunch hour, the plaza was a swirl of camera phones and local reporters. The mayor's press secretary, arriving with an expression halfway between awe and administrative panic, tried to hush speculations about holographic billboards or guerrilla marketing. Yet the crowds needed no official explanation. The evidence continued to glitter over their heads. Each new transparent leaf, of which there were dozens and soon hundreds, functioned like a handheld screen, projecting acts of kindness occurring within a radius of several blocks. The distance seemed elastic. Sometimes the scenes were from the opposite riverbank, sometimes from the very fringe of the plaza itself. Whenever a good deed took place, someone giving directions without impatience, paying a bus fare for a stranger, merely pausing to listen, the leaves nearest the tree trunk shimmered and replayed it. At first, the visions were curiosity enough. People gasped, pointed, applauded, but novelty matured into something deeper the moment the tree began to respond in real time. It happened shortly before sunset on the second day, when a corporate attorney in a pinstriped suit approached the coffee cart. Marta was about to close, yet she slid a free cinnamon bun toward him after noting how drained he looked. Simultaneously, every leaf on the south side of the tree lit up and duplicated the gesture, wreathed in pinkish light. A small boy, watching beside his mother, tapped her wrist. "Let's go give Mr. Salazar downstairs some of our banana bread," he pleaded. She hesitated, then nodded. Across the plaza, the attorney, oblivious to the spectacle, bit into his pastry and smiled for the first time in what might have been days. The chain was set into motion. The next morning, a college student lugged 3 bags of groceries up 4 flights for her widowed neighbor. The leaves replayed the ascent. A cluster of office workers late for a meeting glimpsed it and decided in the elevator to donate blood after work. At the clinic, the phlebotomist noticed the tree insignia printed on their visitor stickers, and later she brought sandwiches for patients in the waiting area. That Act 2 blossomed overhead. Where courtesy had once been optional, It was now contagious, refracted through living glass that made moral cause and effect impossible to ignore. Not everyone was comfortable with the exposure. At City Hall, Councilman Reyes convened an emergency session. We can't have private citizens broadcast without consent, he argued. What about minors? What about surveillance laws? Yet each time his colleagues mounted objections, a leaf outside the chamber flashed some small mercy. A museum guard stooping to tie a child's loose shoelace, a garbage collector rescuing a kitten from a storm drain. The images arrived like rebuttals nobody dared dismiss. Discussion adjourned without resolutions. The tree's quiet defense was persuasive in a way bureaucracy never could be. Still, unease lingered in darker corners of the city. After midnight on the fifth day, a hooded figure crossed the plaza, armed with pruning shears. The livestream security cameras revealed later that he paused, glancing up at the faintly glowing canopy. He raised the tool and caught sight of himself on one of the higher branches. Older, softer lines around the eyes, standing in a kitchen beside a frail woman stirring soup. She wore the same scarf the tree now displayed, knitted green and gold. The intruder stared, lowering the shears incrementally. The angle widened. He was feeding the woman a spoonful, patiently cooling it, smiling when she managed a taste. She laughed, weak but genuine. The leaf trembled in the night breeze, and tears slicked across the man's cheeks. He set the shears at the base of the trunk, touched the bark, and left without a further word. Morning joggers found the shears and posted photos online as proof that benevolence could disarm even anonymous malice. Spring ripened into early summer, and the tree's fame grew with its foliage. Each new transparent leaf was larger than the last, and the vignettes became longer, as though the plant had learned editing techniques. Grocery stores in Westbridge reported shortages of canned goods and diapers. Residents were donating them in droves to the homeless shelter. After seeing volunteers on the leaves ladle stew and fold blankets, bus drivers adopted a plaza-adjacent detour to watch their own courtesy mirrored back to passengers. Teachers guided field trips under the branches, encouraging students to identify the different types of empathy portrayed. The city's tourism board, smelling opportunity, added the looking glass tree to walking maps, but the locals continued to treat it less like an attraction and more like a neighbor whose good opinion mattered. Among those most changed was Naima Jordan, a 17-year-old with a gifted hand for street art and a rap sheet already populated by minor vandalism. She had originally visited with the intention of tagging the plaza's northern wall, a blank expanse that taunted every graffiti artist in the borough. Standing beneath the quivering canopy, spray can concealed in her backpack, she witnessed a montage of scenes unlike any city narrative she'd grown up with. A lanky adolescent guiding a blind commuter across rush hour chaos, a gruff cabbie refusing a fare from a sobbing runaway, two stylish teens abandoning their queue for a sneaker drop to help search for a lost poodle. The leaves rendered the kindnesses with cinematic flair, saturating colors, cutting on reaction shots, lingering on shy smiles. Naima found herself spellbound. An elderly couple approached, their cane tips tapping the pavement. The man's knee buckled, groceries toppling. Instinct jerked Naima forward. She caught the paper bag, rescued a rolling orange, and eased him upright. The can of green spray paint clunked against the ground, unmistakable. The woman eyed it, suspicion threading her gratitude. Naima flushed, but then a dozen leaves scintillated, replaying her swift intervention for everyone nearby. Strangers clapped. The elderly couple thanked her thrice. The suspicion melted. Naima left the plaza without adding any color to the wall, but that night she stayed up, sketching a mural that celebrated generosity rather than rebellion. Within a week, she obtained legal permission to paint it on the community center's facade, an approval greased by the fact that the committee had seen her grocery rescue loop in tree-borne projection more than once. When the media storm climaxed, satellite trucks ringed the plaza like siege engines. Morning anchors delivered caffeinated monologues from beneath the boughs. Commentators debated whether the phenomenon was botanical mutation, alien technology, or divine intervention. The leaves responded by dimming, as though embarrassed by too much attention to themselves rather than to the stories they showed. Their surfaces clouded slightly, and when pressed, they offered only partial glimpses. Crowds thinned in disappointment. A rumor spread that the miracle was over. Elias noticed the waning glow first. He suspected, with an intuition honed by decades of monitoring teenage consciences, what the tree might be demanding. One Tuesday afternoon, he stood before a CNN camera crew and asked them politely to leave. He urged onlookers to stop filming the leaves and start imitating them. His speech was brief, but ended with a gesture. He removed the knitted cap from his head and placed it on the ears of a homeless veteran slumped on the nearest bench. The veteran, startled, then wrapped the cap tighter. The crew captured the gesture, but the leaf above them blazed so fiercely that the camera lens temporarily whited out. A collective hush fell over the plaza. Reporters lowered their microphones. Within 10 minutes, the satellite trucks were navigating toward the avenue exit. In the sudden quiet that followed, good deeds regained their ordinary scale. A florist left bouquets on nursing home windowsills. Parents organized a cleanup of the graffiti-riddled underpass. An anonymous donor paid the adoption fees for every animal at Westbridge Shelter. The leaves brightened gradually like fireflies testing twilight until clarity returned. Yet now, the citizens barely paused to watch. Their eyes were busy seeking their own opportunities. The tree had inverted its purpose. It no longer inspired kindness by flaunting it. It rewarded kindness by reflecting it. The loop was closed, self-sustaining. By autumn, the city's statistical analysts noted measurable change. Emergency room admissions linked to violence declined 8%. Public library card registrations rose 11%, and volunteer applications tripled at the youth mentorship program. Economists cautioned correlation versus causation, but residents didn't bother with spreadsheets. They could stroll through the plaza any day, look up, and see a living ledger of benevolence. The first annual Festival of Transparent Leaves took place on a mild October Saturday. Stalls ringed the plaza offering free haircuts, legal advice, and flu shots. Naima unveiled her completed mural, which depicted the plane tree at center, branches stretching not over the plaza but through every burrow, each leaf a frame, narrating unheralded compassion. She had hidden dozens of small QR codes in the artwork, linking to local charities' wish lists, a sleight of hand the tree seemed to approve of, its foliage flickering approvingly above the unveiling. Marta orchestrated a coffee giveaway that day, assisted by the crossing guard who'd received her inaugural donut months earlier. They served thousands of cups, fueled by donated beans from a roastery whose owner confessed he'd been moved to generosity after watching the tree display a veteran barista teaching a shy apprentice. Elias gave a keynote from the bandstand, less a speech than a story, tracing how a city had learned to imagine itself kinder simply by being shown evidence that it already was. His closing line, later reprinted on municipal banners, was, "We were good all along. The tree just removed the curtains." As evening settled, paper lanterns ascended into the sky, their trajectories mirrored by the now amber leaves. A hush, born of exhaustion and fulfillment, floated through the crowd. They watched a final scene ripple across the canopy, the day's festival itself, captured in a sweeping aerial shot none of them had filmed. In the vision, the plaza glowed like a lit hearth, ringed by dark city blocks that gradually brightened, as if embered by radiating kindness. The image lingered until stars pierced it. No one knew how long the looking-glass tree would live, whether its offspring would inherit the gift, or whether some future council might uproot it in the name of development. Yet the citizens of Westbridge understood now that they possessed the secret independent of any foliage. Kindness lives on the edge of visibility, awaiting only the right angle of light to become unmistakable. Long after the lanterns extinguished, couples lingered, tracing constellations of generosity. When they finally drifted home, they carried with them the plaza's invisible seeds, intentions transparent as the leaves that had shown them the hidden cinema of their own better natures.